Not all old furniture is created equal, and not all of it is suited to a high-gloss lacquer makeover. Today, I'm walking you through 7 vintage brands that we love, what to watch out for, and why some are a dream and others are a little more of a project. Let's start with Drexel, one of the most common and collectible vintage brands. They actually stopped manufacturing in the 1980s, but their furniture is still everywhere. You'll find sublines like Drexel Accolade, Drexel Heritage, and more. Daniel here is a large campaign-style china cabinet. Campaign furniture made a comeback about 10 years ago, and it's still trending today. In fact, Williams-Sonoma, Serena and Lily, and Amazon are in on it. But vintage campaign pieces like Drexel's are so much better. Pros, popular styling, timeless silhouettes. Cons, heavy grain, and grain is the enemy of a high-gloss piano finish. The Drexel pieces often have deep, wide grain, which takes a ton of primer and grain fill to hide. Sometimes we encounter a grain that's just too heavy for our usual process. When that happens, instead of gloss, we often go for cerusing. Bentley here, for example, was finished with a black undercoat and a white lime wax. Same with the Mitchells, midnight blue base, white wax top. These finishes actually embrace the grain instead of trying to fight it. Thomasville is a common brand that made high-quality furniture. You can find Thomasville pieces to fit almost any style. I went into a lot of country-style hutches and dining tables. However, I prefer the faux bamboo pieces or just a clean classic dresser from them. Graham, Ripley, and Tessa are some of my absolute favorites. Pros, smooth finish and often just ready for gloss. In fact, the faux bamboo tops are usually linoleum or masonite. It looks cheesy and feels cheap, but is really resistant and easy to lacquer over. Cons, some late era styles just didn't age well. Overall, Thomasville pieces are rarely a problem. If it's not too distressed, we're good to go. I didn't know much about American and Martinsville when I started out. Now, it's one I search for by name. Comparable to Henredon and Drexel in quality, their pieces are heavy and very well constructed with great design variety. From Limoncello to Bianca to McDonald, they deliver a consistent canvas for a beautiful high-gloss lacquer finish. So the pros, high quality, diverse styling, minimal prep needed. Cons, just one. They're heavy, like very, very heavy. John Widdicombe was another manufacturer who designed very diverse styles. Wilder here is a very mid-century modern or even post-modernist style. And Wren was originally very traditional with a lot of detail. So the pros, very well built, of course. Cons, on the more traditional pieces, the excess detail can feel overwhelming. Sometimes you have to stare at it for a few minutes before you can even see its potential. On Wren, we obviously changed the hardware, but also removed some of the corner details around the drawers. Henredon pieces are becoming harder and harder to find. What most people don't know is that Henredon collaborated with Drexel on the Drexel Heritage line. Those are more commonly available. In fact, sometimes you can see the Henredon name stamped right next to the Drexel Heritage maker mark, so watch for those. So for Henredon, the pros are high quality construction and they're not overly embellished with details that we need to sand around. Cons, they can be a little heavy on grain, but their biggest con is the weight. It makes moving them around during production hard, but also increases the cost of shipping. So the Gilroys here, the Fairbanks, and Henry are all terrific Henredon pieces. In fact, on Henry, we did a satin finish. The more dull the finish, the less grain visibility is an issue. However, large scratches that cross the grain will definitely have to be dealt with before spraying. Bassett furniture pieces are always a great find. So Reese and Benson here are Bassett silhouettes that come up now and then. Pros, they are solidly built and not overly decorated. Their finish is almost always smooth, so we only have to deal with any damage from age or overuse. Cons, I've come across some of these that are a little shorter than usual. I try to stay away from really weird proportions. And finally, Landstrom, a brand that closed in 1951 and still somehow feels completely current. Avery, Eva, and Dina are all Landstrom pieces with timeless appeal. Pros, always stylish, well-made, and lacquer-ready. Cons, they're rare. And when you find them, they're often in rough condition just because of how old they are. If you're lucky enough to find one of these pieces in the wild, look for clean lines, beautiful hardware, and normal proportions. If you find excessive detailing, a distressed finish, or major damage, you might want to pause before making that purchase. Not sure if the piece you're considering is a good buy? Email me directly at caseygraystudios@gmail.com and we'd be happy to give you our 2 cents. Got a favorite vintage brand that I didn't mention? Drop it in the comments below and we'll discuss it in a future episode. And don't forget to hit like and subscribe for additional vintage furniture advice, brand tips, and behind the scenes. We'll see you next time.